They always tell you that life changes in loud moments. A breakup, a betrayal, a confession, a door slammed so hard it shakes the house. But that's not how it really happens. Real change doesn't scream. It whispers. And the scariest part? You don't realize it's a turning point until long after it's already over. Before we begin, if you're someone who's drawn to slow, emotional, deeply human stories, the kind that stay in your mind long after they end, then subscribe to this channel. Because here, we don't just tell stories. We explore the moments people never forget, even when they try to. And this one still echoes in mind that it's strange how life can look perfect from the outside, while quietly falling apart on the inside. From the outside, my life was what people call successful. A stable marriage. A large home that felt impressive even when it was empty. Dinner parties where laughter bounced off expensive glasses. Carefully chosen photos posted online that made everything look warm, polished, complete. People used to say things like, "She's lucky. He worked hard to give her this life. She married well." And I used to smile at that. Not because it was true, but because correcting them felt exhausting. My husband, Daniel, was respected, focused, driven. He had ambition the way some people have oxygen, constant, necessary, consuming. At one point, I admired that about him. At one point, I felt chosen by him. There was a time when he would reach for my hand under restaurant tables without thinking. A time when Sunday mornings meant laughter in the kitchen instead of silence across breakfast plates. A time when we talked about everything and nothing at the same time. But ambition is not loud when it destroys things. It doesn't break them. It replaces them. Slowly. Quietly. First the conversations disappear. Then the shared laughter. Then the touch. Then the attention. And finally, the awareness that anything is missing at all. What remains looks intact. But it's only structure, not connection. And I didn't notice when I became part of the furniture in my own life. Present, but unseen. Our house was large enough that silence had room to grow inside it. At night, I could hear my own footsteps too clearly. In the kitchen, I cooked meals for two. Even when one plate stayed untouched. Daniel worked late more often than he stayed home. When he was home, he wasn't really present. His mind always seemed somewhere else. Emails, calls, meetings, future plans. At first, I told myself it was temporary. At first, I believed success had a cost. But time has a way of turning temporary into normal. And normal becomes something you stop questioning. So I adjusted. I became efficient. I became quiet. I became someone who filled the space instead of questioning it. I cooked. I cleaned. I smiled. I hosted. And slowly, I disappeared inside my own routine. Loneliness doesn't arrive like an event. It builds like weather. You don't notice it forming until you realize everything around you has been damp for too long. And the worst part? No one sees it happening. Not even the person living it. That it was a Tuesday when Caleb arrived. A storm outside. Rain falling so heavily it blurred the world beyond the windows. He stood at the door soaked, exhausted, carrying a single bag like he didn't expect to stay anywhere long. He was 21. Too young to look that tired. Too quiet to look that broken. Daniel introduced him gently. "This is Caleb, my friend's son. He'll stay here for a while." His father had died suddenly. A heart attack. No warning. No preparación. Just absence. And Caleb looked like someone who hadn't yet learned how to exist in a world that no longer included the person who raised him. He didn't speak much when he arrived. Just polite words. Careful movements. Eyes that tried to stay strong but kept failing at it. I showed him the guest room. Gave him towels. Explained where things were. Normal hospitality. Simple kindness. But before he closed the door that night he paused. And quietly said, "Thank you for making this feel less empty." That sentence stayed with me longer than I expected. Because I realized something uncomfortable in that moment. It had been a long time since anyone had thanked me for anything that felt like me. Not the role. Not the routine. Me. First, Caleb stayed distant. But grief doesn't stay quiet forever. It leaks out in unexpected places. In the kitchen late at night. in the way someone stares at nothing while tea cools beside them, in the silence that follows stories about someone who is gone. We began talking slowly, carefully, not because we had to, but because silence between two grieving people feels heavier than words. He told me about his father, about memories that felt too fragile to touch too quickly, about how people move on too fast after funerals, how the world keeps going like nothing happened, while yours has stopped completely. I understood that feeling more than I admitted, because I had been grieving too. Not a death, but a disappearance that happened slowly enough that no one noticed. My marriage had not ended. It had just stopped growing. One evening, he said something while I was cooking. "You make this place feel warm." It wasn't a compliment meant to impress. It was an observation. But it landed somewhere deeper than that. Because I hadn't realized how long it had been since I made anything feel warm for anyone. Not even myself. Daniel didn't notice the change. Or maybe he didn't have space in his mind to notice anything outside his work. Caleb began staying in the kitchen while I cooked. Not intruding. Just present. Watching. Listening. Existing in the same space without pressure. And presence, after long absence, feels like oxygen. We told ourselves a simple story. He is grieving. I am helping. This is normal. This is harmless. This is temporary. But loneliness has a dangerous side effect. It makes basic human attention feel like something more than it is. A look becomes meaningful. A conversation becomes emotional. Silence becomes intimacy. Not because anything inappropriate happens, but because nothing has felt real for so long that even normality feels intense. And I started noticing something I hadn't felt in years. Being seen. Not as a wife performing a role. Not as a background presence in someone else's life. But as a person. And that changes something inside you if you've gone too long without it. Daniel was away on another business trip. The house felt even larger in his absence. Even quieter. Even emptier. Caleb suggested watching a movie. Something simple. We sat on opposite ends of the couch at first. Careful distance. Respectful silence. But halfway through the film, a scene appeared. Something about loss, about a son and his father. And I felt the shift before I saw it. His breathing changed. His posture broke slightly. Not dramatic. Just human. Without thinking, I reached out and placed my hand over his. It wasn't planned. It wasn't intentional. It was instinct. And he held it. Not immediately, but firmly. Like letting go would mean falling again. And in that moment something changed. Not love. Not desire. Something more dangerous. Recognition. Two people realizing they are both drowning in different ways, and noticing each other for the first time. Then he said it. Softly. Carefully. "If I told you what I really wanted, would you say yes?" The room didn't go silent. It collapsed into silence. I should have stepped away. I should have said no. I should have created distance. But silence has weight. And in that moment, I didn't move. Neither did he. And that was the moment everything became irreversible. Not because anything fully happened, but because something had already been felt. The next day, everything was different. He avoided me. I avoided him. We both acted like nothing had happened. Because that's what people do when reality becomes too uncomfortable to name. But silence after truth is never neutral. It always means something changed. Daniel returned that evening. Kissed my cheek without looking at me. Asked about dinner. Normal words. Normal routine. But I felt something I couldn't unfeel anymore. The awareness that my life had two layers now. What looked fine. And what actually was. Caleb left the kitchen earlier each day after that. Stopped lingering. Stopped talking much. And I realized something painful. Nothing had happened between us. But everything had changed anyway. Weeks passed. Distance grew. And then one afternoon he stood at the doorway. Different. Calmer. More certain. "I'm leaving," he said. "I can't stay here. Not like this." I asked him why. And he said something I never forgot. "Because I don't want to become something that hurts you." That was the moment I understood. This was never love. It was loneliness recognizing loneliness. Two broken places trying to feel less broken by being near each other. Before he left, he said quietly, "You deserve to be loved without hiding." And then he was gone. That night, something changed between Daniel and me. Not dramatically, not loudly, but honestly. For the first time in years, I told him the truth. I feel lonely. I feel invisible. I miss you. And he didn't interrupt, didn't defend, didn't dismiss. He listened.